Hello humans, I'm Yoshiller. If you're new to this channel, then please allow me to quickly fill you in. I'm a walkthrough Let's Player person that makes all sorts of video game related content. On Wednesdays, I do this thing called Whatever Wednesday, where I get to upload whatever I want. This is a Whatever Wednesday video, and it's my 50th one. So, as a celebration, I've decided to count down the top 50 best Nintendo games. Now, it might be a fairly obvious list, but I figured, what the hey. My goal is to make this an entertaining video for you guys to watch, but of course this video could end my YouTube career as I know it. Let's hope that that's not the case. Plus, I figured that there's always some common debates as to what the best Nintendo games are, so I figured I'd go ahead and give my say-so on the subject. Now, I don't really do top 10 videos, let alone top 50 videos, but I figured that it would be good editing practice. Also, before I begin this list, let me set a few rules. Games on this list must be published by Nintendo or a company under the ownership or partnership of Nintendo. These include, but are not limited to, Rare, the Pokemon Company International, Retro Studios, HAL Laboratories, Intelligent Systems, etc. Now I know that Rare is now owned by Microsoft, but they still made games for Nintendo at a point in time. So even though Nintendo may have published certain games like Bomberman, Nintendo needs to have developed those games, not published them. Games must have been released onto at least 2 regions. So games that are Japan exclusive will not be counted. So games like Mother 3 will not be on this list. Sorry. Game collections do not count. So games such as Super Mario All-Stars or Nintendo Puzzle Collection will not be on this list. Games in this list will be ranked based on how fun they are, how revolutionary they are, and how replayable they are. So while it might be a game that's fun to play, another game might be ranked higher than it because it has better replay value, or because it's a game that is more crucial to the gaming industry. Lastly, I know for a fact that somebody out there is going to have this game that he or she really likes, and it won't show up on this list, or it'll be ranked too low or too high, or... So I don't expect anyone to agree with this list 100%. And if someone does, then I'm gonna probably not do anything. That's cool that you agree with this list. I will say, though, that there are quite a few games on this list that I haven't even played. But they're on here because I know that other people like those games. So, for all of you guys that have disliked certain games and hate the fact that they're on this list, bring it on! Bring on those flamer comments! Anywho, I think that's enough of an explanation. Time for the list to begin! Number 50! This will probably turn a lot of people away immediately, but this game needs to be somewhere on the list. Yes, it's Wii Sports. Yeah, everyone knows about this game, whether you like it or not. It is the best-selling video game of all time. Now you might be saying, but Yoshiller, it's only the best-selling video game because it came packaged with all of the Wii systems. And to that, I will respond by saying that that's not true! It wasn't packaged with Wii systems in Japan, and the game can now be purchased on its own without the need to buy a console. This game brought us into the day and age of motion control gaming, and, for better or for worse, it's thanks to this game that people of all ages are playing video games. But hey, as cheesy as this game is, I can almost guarantee that somebody will like either boxing or bowling in this game. I mean, come on. Number 49! Now, some of you might be thinking, what? Yeah, that's right, Super Mario Bros. 2 is on this list. You see, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, wanted to try something new with a Mario game, and these ideas eventually led to the creation of a Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic, due to the development team fearing that it was way too different from the original Super Mario Bros. Game. However, it eventually became a Mario game anyway after it was decided that the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, later renamed to Super Mario Lost Levels, was too difficult for certain people to play. So I have placed Super Mario Bros. 2 on this list mainly for its risky move of trying to become a different game of an already successful game. And hey, this was done in a day and age where, for the most part, doing this sort of thing was okay. Nowadays, if a game did that, like making a game way too different from its predecessor, there would be a lot of people lining up with pitchforks and torches outside of the company building. But back then, this was actually pretty interesting to see. And just because it's different doesn't mean it isn't fun. I mean, they also brought these ideas back in Super Mario 3D World. That should at least show something. Number 48! Some people would argue that this game should be higher on the list, and others will probably not know anything about this game other than the fact that the main character appears in Super Smash Bros. It's Earthbound. Earthbound is amazing. I hadn't played it until it came out on the Wii U's eShop Virtual Console, and the fact that I enjoyed a game that came out 20 years ago tells me that this is a fantastic video game. It's humorous, it's adventurous, it's touching, and it's fun! It's a shame that the game didn't sell well here in the States, but in Japan, wow, it was popular! And the people that did initially play Earthbound are huge fans even today, creating one of the most well-known cult followings of all time. Oh, and Fuzzy Pickles.
Number 47.
A lot of people say that the Wii U has no games, and that's where I disagree. It has games, and people just refuse to admit it. Even so, there is a game for the Wii U that has a rightful spot on this list, and that's Nintendo Land. I'll admit that this shouldn't have been Nintendo's trump card back at E3 2012, at least with the way they advertised it, but let me say that this game rightfully deserves a lot of hype. The attractions in this game are so fun, and they're even more fun with friends. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't like the Yoshi attraction or the Octopus attraction, but all of the other ones, wow! This shows that after several decades, Nintendo has some strong, creative ideas and simple concepts that are still some of the most creative and fun forms of entertainment. Good job, Nintendo! Just a shame that this was poorly advertised at E3. But it's a good game, trust me!
Number 46.
I was never a huge Zelda fan, but that isn't to say that I dislike the franchise. In fact, there are quite a few things about the franchise that I can admire. I think that it's cool that the franchise can be very happy and very cartoony and then become very dark and serious and then very happy and cartoony again. I think it's cool that the main characters of the game are left-handed, and I think it's cool that there's a great big world to explore in every game. And it all started with the first game here. For being a game on such a simple game system, it's still a very large and expansive game. Heck, people are still finding information about this video game, and it's a simple game. And I always tell people, simplicity is key. I mean, think about it. Move from screen to screen, slash enemy, find secrets, collect the pieces of the Triforce. And it's thanks to this game that we'll always remember that it's dangerous to go alone.
Number 45.
Alright, so every gamer, or at least almost every gamer, knows that the good old Mario Brothers were originally plumbers, and thus the arcade classic Mario Brothers was born. Yes, this is where the Mario Brothers are actually plumbers, or at least working with pipes, and it's just simple fun. It was even slapped onto all of the Game Boy Advance Mario games just because it was simple and addicting. And you could play it with a friend. That's cool. And, you know, it probably deserves a lot more praise, but I'm only putting it here on the list because there are games that are better than it.
Number 44.
Even if you don't play it, you at least know a Pokemon. Ah yes, good old Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue, or Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green in Japan. They were super successful Game Boy games, and they're the games that started the whole franchise. There's a reason that Pokemon is the second best franchise of all time, losing only to Super Mario Bros. It has a successful video game series, anime, and trading card game. Pokemon allows for so much player creativity that it's almost impossible to not find something that you like. That being said though, the original games do have their flaws. I mean, people that have played the games know of the infamous Psychic type and how overpowered it was, and how worthless Bug type Pokemon were in fighting against them. There's also a lot of other things in the game that have aged, like the poor tiling and the poor sprite work. That's why the original Pokemon games actually aren't on this list, but rather the remakes of these games are. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green showed us why it's awesome to be a Pokemon fan after all these years. It took the first set of games and made them prettier and made them better. And after these games tested wireless abilities, it became the norm for players to compete against each other wirelessly, not just in Pokemon, but in games in general. I will admit, messing around with glitches in the original Pokemon games was an entertaining experience, but the remakes are just so much more worthwhile. And if you prefer the original Pokemon games, then that's fine. Just have fun not being able to transfer your Pokemon after Generation 2.
Number 43.
So Mario has a PhD, and he's a plumber, and his brother's finally getting a PhD. Who knew? Anyway, Dr. Mario is just simple fun. Who'd have thought that a game with the name of Dr. Mario would become one of Nintendo's most successful puzzle franchises? Though I guess Mario is in the title, so there's bound to be some buyers right off the bat. Again, this is a game where simplicity is the key to success. I've decided to put the original Dr. Mario game on here because the fact that the game is old and still fun to play shows that this game has aged well and can still continue to represent what Nintendo can do with simple concepts. So, keep up the good work, Doc.
Number 42.
You see, back in the late 90s, a lot of games were making a leap into the world of 3D. It was just the new hit thing. And then Kirby came around and showed us that just because a game is 3D doesn't mean that the whole concept of the game franchise has to change. So Kirby 64 has landed a spot on this list. Yeah, I know that I put Super Mario Bros. 2 on this list because it was different, but technically Kirby 64 is on this list for a similar reason. It was different for being the same. It didn't change the whole concept of the game. Games like Mario, Donkey Kong, and Zelda all changed drastically by going into 3D. And I'm not saying that's bad, it's just Kirby, although it looked 3D, still played like a normal Kirby game. And that was cool! And who hated the mixing copy ability thing? To this day, my favorite abilities are still the Fire Sword, the Electric Saber, the Fireworks, and the Refrigerator. What other game lets you play as a refrigerator? I mean, come on. How could you hate Kirby, and how could you hate Kirby 64? It has to be on this list.
Number 41.
Ah, good old Tetris. All of you guys should know what Tetris is, whether you're a video game fan or not. We all know what Tetris is. It's falling blocks. What I should need to explain about this, though, is why I've chosen to put Tetris DS on this list as opposed to the original. Technically, Nintendo doesn't own Tetris. The franchise has gone back and forth between all sorts of companies, and it's been put onto phones and game systems and everything. But Nintendo made Tetris DS, which I find to be the best recreation of the game. You've got all sorts of fun game modes, classic and new, fun music, fun colors, and fun additions. There's a lot of unnecessary stuff in this game, but it's all fun. And then you can even go online and play with other people. Trust me, if there's a Tetris game to get that isn't on your phone or tablet, it's this one.
Number 40.
Ah, Wario. This fat tub of garlic has received quite a following. Although he first appeared in a Mario game, this guy was so popular he spawned 2 successful video game franchises and a few spin-offs. One franchise was Wario Land, and while I really do love this franchise, this spot on the list will be given to a game from the other franchise, WarioWare. Now, I've had a hard time deciding which WarioWare game deserves to be on this spot of the list, so I've ultimately made it a tie between 2 DS titles in the franchise, WarioWare Touched and WarioWare DIY. WarioWare has always been so ridiculous that it's fun, and WarioWare Touched made great use of the Nintendo DS's touchscreen through humorous gameplay mechanics. Then you were able to create your own games using WarioWare DIY. I'm in school learning how to make video games right now, and to be honest with you guys, WarioWare DIY is a good way to understand how to make games. If this happens, then it happens, and if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. It'll make that will make more sense if you play the game. And then you can make custom music, and it's an unnecessary addition, but it's still fun just to mess around with all this stuff. Both games are just simple fun and are great on a handheld, considering that all these games are just short 5-second mini games. But if I had to pick the ones that best represent the series, I'd pick WarioWare Touched and WarioWare DIY.
Number 39.
Mario Tennis.
Yep, I'm not kidding. This game's awesome soundtrack and simple gameplay mechanics makes it an enjoyable time for everyone. And the interesting thing is, the game is just tennis. I mean, yeah, there are other modes you can play, such as playing on the Bowser Court and the Piranha Plant Challenge and all that stuff, but otherwise, it's just a simple tennis game, and that's awesome! Plus, this game has one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time. I know, a Mario sports game has one of my favorite soundtracks, but that's awesome! Good job, Machoi Sakuraba! Keep up the good work with your Tales Up games and Golden Sun or whatever. Anyway, this game has also taught me the rules of tennis. You know how crazy that is? Video games taught me how to play tennis. See, humans, video games can teach you things in life.
Number 38.
Releasing around the launch of the GameCube, Pikmin showed how pretty and interesting games of the 21st century would be. Pikmin allowed you to play as one character that controlled up to 100 other characters, called Pikmin. Your goal was to collect 30 ship pieces in 30 days, and the best part was that you could choose how you wanted to spend each of your days. Did you want to try and collect 5 ship parts in one day? Go for it. Did you want to spend a day just exploring the map? Go for it. Did you want to spend an entire day just collecting more Pikmin? Go for it. It's a great game that truly tests the player's resource and time management skills, and I think it still holds up.
Number 37.
Ah, good old Kirby. Although Kirby's debut game was Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy, Kirby's signature ability of inhaling his enemies wasn't introduced until this game, Kirby's Adventure. Marking Kirby's first appearance as a pink character, Kirby's Adventure showed just how much a developer could expand a game on the NES, and to this day, it's still fun. Now there does exist a remake of this game, which is Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland on the Game Boy Advance, and that game is also amazing. But I put this one on the list instead because at the time, this is quite a bit to put on a single cartridge for the NES. Whereas Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland was released in the same day and age where large and expansive Pokemon games were released on the same system. So I know I put the remakes of the Pokemon games on this list and not the originals, but the original Kirby game's going on this list just because there's nothing really wrong with it. So, yeah.
Number 36.
When people think of Nintendo, they think of Super Mario or The Legend of Zelda or Pikmin or yada yada yada. But hey, they've made some pretty awesome puzzle games too. Although it's known as Panel de Pon in Japan, Tetris Attack, as we've come to know it, is such a fun puzzle game, and it has had quite a history with Nintendo franchises. Its first game starred Yoshi characters, while dubbed under the franchise name of Tetris. Then it became known as the Pokemon franchise Pokemon Puzzle, spawning 2 games, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge and Pokemon Puzzle League. And then it became its own franchise, and it's still fun! I don't know what it is, but I guess that there's just a certain joy of pushing colorful blocks around. So call it what you want, but in this list it shall be called Tetris Attack, because it is fun.
Number 35.
It's a Mario game, but technically it's not a traditional Mario game. The creator of Mario didn't make this game, and what other Mario game do you say Princess Daisy instead of Princess Peach? Yeah, Super Mario Land is different, alright, but it's still a simple, fun, and enjoyable Mario game. And a fun and enjoyable Game Boy game. And, I mean, it's a Mario game that you could play on the go. There's a reason that this game sold over 18 million copies, and it's not just because Mario is slapped on the game's cover. Okay, well, maybe it is, but you get the idea. It's a fun Game Boy game, and it's certainly a game that represents the Game Boy.
Number 34.
Alright, so you guys knew that this game had to be somewhere on the list. The good old original Super Mario Bros. This video game classic showed how a video game should be made. I mean, so many games follow this formula. Move with a D-pad, jump with a button. And how fast you go, how high you jump, and how far you move are based on how long and how deep you push the buttons. Everyone knows this game, and it certainly deserves a spot on this list. I mean, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's been the reason we still have video games today. If you don't know why that is, then you might want to look up the video game crash of 1983.
Number 33.
Banjo-Kazooie. I haven't played this game, but I know that there are always people that talk about it, especially when they refer to the glorious days of when Rare was part of Nintendo and not part of Microsoft. And to be fair, just from looking at it, you can tell that that game looks like fun. Though I've also heard that the sequel got some praise, and I haven't played that one either, so I don't really know which game is better. So I'm just going to put Banjo-Kazooie and its sequel, Banjo-Tooie, here at spot number 33. Now you might be wondering, isn't that cheating? And to that, I'll say yes. Yes it is. But it's my list! And since I don't know too much about either game, I just contacted some people, and they pretty much described the games as Nintendo 64 3D platforming perfection. And yeah, I hear that the games have funny dialogue and huge worlds to explore, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie are both on this list, even though I've never played either.
Number 32.
So like I said previously on this list, the Nintendo 64 took a lot of popular video game franchises and transitioned them into 3D. When Pokemon made its move, it transitioned in such a clever way that it greatly improved the series without drastically changing it. Pokemon decided to stick to handheld games at this time, while the console games were their spin-off games. At this time, that was pretty backwards for a lot of other video game franchises. Usually, the major games went out on the consoles while the spin-off games went onto the handhelds. But this Pokemon spin-off on a console wasn't just a spin-off, it was Pokemon Stadium. And this was a way you could see all of your existing Pokemon in 3D. And if you had a Pokemon game, then you could actually see your Pokemon in 3D. It was genius. And then you could fight against other people, and even though both your Pokemon and attack showed up on the same screen, you had no idea what the other person was going to do. It was awesome. However, it was Pokemon Stadium 2 that actually made it onto this list. While Pokemon Stadium is an amazing game, Pokemon Stadium 2 earned the spot because it pretty much is the first Pokemon Stadium game made better. While Pokemon Stadium had 151 Pokemon seen in 3D, fun mini-games, and amazing replayability, Pokemon Stadium 2 had all that, more balanced Pokemon and stats, an additional 100 Pokemon that could be seen in 3D, and the ability to go back and fight the gym leaders from previous Pokemon games. It was a golden age for video games, and a golden age for Pokemon. And I'm not just saying that because these Pokemon games were named after Pokemon Gold and Silver, and that the cartridge is Gold and Silver. I'm saying that because it's true, that these games were the golden age of Pokemon. And to this day, I still go back and play this game just for the mini-games. I went and bought this awesome game, and I find myself playing the mini-games in it the most. Is that an insult or a compliment? It doesn't matter, this game is amazing.
Number 31.
As the first video game unveiled for the Nintendo 3DS, fans went nuts over the reboot of Kid Icarus, made into Kid Icarus Uprising. Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of this game, Kirby, and Super Smash Bros., took a model of Pit from Super Smash Bros. Brawl and decided to use that model to reboot an entire franchise. This game is debatably the game that defines the Nintendo 3DS. This game has hilarious dialogue, various replayable aspects, and glorious multiplayer mechanics. But yeah, people had wanted another Kid Icarus game for a long time, and while this isn't the game that fans had in mind, it's still a fantastic game! Masahiro Sakurai did an awesome job for making a Kid Icarus game, and if you're looking for an awesome Nintendo 3DS game to buy, then this is the one to get.
Number 30.
F-Zero X! Whoa man, this high-speed racing game pushed the Nintendo 64 to its limits! In fact, the graphics for this game were supposed to be even better than this, but the game system just couldn't support it, so they had to wash down the graphics a bit. F-Zero X is just high-speed fun. There's a reason that F-Zero is represented in Super Smash Bros. In Nintendo Land, and F-Zero X is the game in the franchise that shines the most. True, F-Zero GX is an awesome game as well, but guess what? That wasn't made by Nintendo. That was made by Sega. That was still a pretty good game. F-Zero X is truly a gem among racing games, and its ridiculous circumstances and track layouts make it a fun time. And then, if you're a collector like me, you could get the F-Zero X expansion kit for the Nintendo 64 DD and make your own tracks. It was like hacking games before game hacking.
Number 29.
Aw yeah! Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Is Nintendo's crossover masterpiece. In terms of the Nintendo 64 game, this game wasn't even supposed to come to America. In fact, it wasn't even supposed to be a crossover game. But look what happened! It became one of the most successful franchises of all time, with fans always eager to hear the news of the next installment. It's thanks to this game that I even know what F-Zero and Earthbound are, and it's thanks to this game that I was able to spend several nights just playing video games with friends. This game is just a simple fighting game too. There have been other games that have tried to replicate it, but none are quite the same as Super Smash Bros. All you have to do is knock the person off the stage, and each character is so different that there's all sorts of strategies you can do. This game is so fun that people even download ROMs of the game just so they can play the game online using an emulator. And I don't know why I have to keep talking about hacking and piracy all the time. I should probably stop doing that. But Super Smash Bros. Is awesome, and it all starts here with the Nintendo 64 game.
Number 28.
So, back in the day, Square Enix approached Nintendo to make a game, and they made a game called Super Mario RPG. To this day, the game is still critically acclaimed. Though, I didn't put the game on this list because it was made by Square Enix. However, the developers of that game later went on to work on another Mario RPG known as Mario & Luigi. The game that started it all was Mario & Luigi's Superstar Saga, and most people consider this one to be the best game in the franchise. This game's bright colors, memorable characters, and creative gameplay mechanics should be a selling point, but if they're not, then how about I advertise the awesome music, the simple controls, and the interesting story? The Mario & Luigi series also decided to stick to handheld systems, and I like that. I like being able to carry along great games that I can play at home and on the go, and Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga satisfies my needs for a game that I can play on the go. I might also add that in case you only have a little teensy bit of time, Mario Brothers was also included with this game. Yeah, remember when I talked about Mario Brothers earlier on this countdown? Well, now that information applies here. Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga is an awesome RPG.
Number 27.
Ah, the game franchise that makes friendships and then ruins them. It's Mario Party. I didn't really know which Mario Party to put on here since so many people argue that one is better than the other, so I just decided to put the original on here. To me, that is the most revolutionary game in this spin-off series because it's the one that started it all. Sure, I know a lot of people might say that Mario Party 2 or Mario Party 4 are better, or maybe any of them are better for all I know. But I put the original one on here because, to be fair, they all do play similarly. They're all board games with mini-games. And they're all fun, and they're all challenging, and they're all ruin friendships. And then, do you know how popular people get when they play Mario Party? I guess, like, you just play Mario Party on YouTube and you get a bunch of views. I should start doing that.
Number 26.
Mario Paint. I'm serious. Although Mario Paint is a painting game, people to this day still use it for composing music. Mario Paint also made good use of the Super Nintendo mouse, and it's still a pretty fun game to be honest. I mean, it works really, really well. And if you don't have artistic talents, then you can always just swap flies. And I just wish there was an updated version of this game on the 3DS or Wii U or something. I mean, it's just screaming for sequels. Now, there are sequels on the Nintendo 64 DD, and I do have those, but, like, I don't know, they're kind of underplayed. And I mean, we have touchscreen controls now. We can have a real sequel to Mario Paint. But alright, I guess that we just have to live with the original, which is fine, since it's still a fun game. Mario Paint.
Number 25.
As if the first Pikmin game wasn't good enough, Pikmin 2 was an amazing game. It was also a pretty interesting idea for a sequel. Taking place after the events of the original game, you learn that your home planet is in debt, so you have to collect random objects in order to raise money for your planet. That's an interesting twist. Plus, this game offers co-op and multiplayer components. This game even amplifies the strategy needed to progress through the game. It really is a sequel done right. And hey, if you want to play it, it's like available as a Wii game for like 20 bucks now or something. That's an awesome deal for an awesome game like this.
Number 24.
Luigi. I mean, you have the Super Mario Brothers, but it's usually Mario doing all the work unless you play some game with multiplayer. In fact, because you couldn't play as Luigi in a lot of the games, Super Mario Brothers just became known as Super Mario, which is why you have games like Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, not Super Mario Brothers 64 or Super Mario Brothers Sunshine. They were created without including Luigi. Now, Luigi was the main character and Mario was missing, but that wasn't a real Mario game. Fans wanted a real Mario game with Luigi. So Luigi's Mansion was made, and it was a launch title for the GameCube too. I remember asking people what this game was like, and people used to say that there wasn't a game that was comparable to it. Who'd have thought that a game where you play as Luigi hunting ghosts would be fun? Well, apparently the same people who thought that playing as a plumber kicking enemies was a good idea. Luigi's Mansion has earned a spot on this list.
Number 23.
Kirby Superstar. Many consider this to be the best Kirby game, and while the remake for the Nintendo DS is actually really awesome, the original game earns a spot on this list because of one key aspect: co-op play. Yeah, other games at this time had co-op play, and the DS version does allow you to do co-op play, but the DS version doesn't do it very well, and there's something about Kirby Superstar that just makes co-op so much fun. With the original game, all you needed to do was have two controllers plugged in at the same time, and then have your friend make a copy partner. And there's so many different attacks for each copy ability. I mean, that's pretty crazy for a game like this, don't you think? It's like the perfect co-op game. And then your friend would play and you could turn him into all sorts of helpers, and then the game was fun and colorful and had some funny stuff. And who could forget Gourmet Race? I mean, the song is pretty much the theme of Kirby nowadays because of this game.
Number 22.
Ah, good old Mario Kart. Mario Party is a successful Mario spin-off series, but Mario Kart is arguably the most successful Mario spin-off series. It's not really meant to be taken seriously, it's just a bunch of cartoon characters riding around in ghost sharks as they throw shells and bananas at each other. Now, picking the best game in this franchise was tricky. Lots of people like Mario Kart 64, lots of people like Mario Kart DS, and Mario Kart Wii is a very popular one because of online. Ultimately, I had a tie between two Mario Kart games, and I picked these two mainly because of their revolutionary factors. These are Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii. Now, before you start throwing your ball bombs and blue shells at me, please hear me out. I didn't really start playing Mario Kart until, well, recently. And I didn't really play Mario Kart Double Dash until recently. I mean, I was pretty popular in Mario Kart Wii, but that was my second Mario Kart game that I've ever played. And ever since someone hooked up Mario Kart Double Dash in my college, it was like never played by me before. Even though I suck at it, I still had fun playing it. It has lots of characters, it has a fun multiplayer, and it shows off a lot of creative concepts that unfortunately didn't go into other Mario Kart games. So Mario Kart Double Dash earned a spot on this list. Mario Kart Wii is in this list due to its online multiplayer. True, Mario Kart DS was the first Mario Kart to utilize Wi-Fi capabilities, but Mario Kart Wii did it better. And then there's also hackers and people that make custom tracks and custom textures and stuff. That's pretty sweet. So Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii are tied for number 22 on this list.
Number 21.
All aircrafts report, because Star Fox 64 is a critically acclaimed rail shooter. Even though it's not the first Star Fox game in the series, this is usually the one people remember as being the first. It was advertised as being one of the first games to use a Rumble Pack, but everyone remembers this game for its fun gameplay and its memorable characters and dialogue. There were so many jokes that I could throw in here, but I'm pretty sure that everyone has already made all the Star Fox jokes already. But my point is, Star Fox 64 is a great game, and you can buy a remade version for the Nintendo 3DS. But it's the original that's a classic.
Number 20.
For some reason, Nintendo is pretty good, fantastic at making Mario RPGs. Paper Mario is a prime example of that. There's a colorful world to explore and a fun adventure to have, and all of it lies in this game where everyone is a two-dimensional character in a three-dimensional world. There's a reason that this game became its own series. Mario Party became its own series, Mario Kart became its own series, the Mario Sports games became its own series, Mario Tennis became its own series. Well, now Paper Mario is its own series, and this is the game that started that, and it's fun. And if a game can start a series that already is part of a series, then there has to be at least some charming aspects about it. Paper Mario has a victory for me.
Number 19.
Holy wow! You'd think that after nearly 20 years worth of games, 6 generations worth of series, and over 700 different creatures to collect, the Pokemon franchise would have run dry, right? Nope! Pokemon X and Y show that there are games that come out today that are just as creative and fun as the Nintendo classics. You see, Pokemon was all about creativity amongst multiple players. That's why there's always 2 versions of Pokemon games released alongside each other. It encourages interaction. Now that we have online play and 3D models for all of the Pokemon, I can't really see how the franchise could get any better. But hey, these games have surprised me in the past, and I might still be surprised in years to come. Also, the dialogue in this game is amazing. You can tell that the translators just had a grand old time with this game, and if the translators have a good time, then something's gone right. While it is a bit lackluster in plot, the game itself is pretty amazing.
Number 18.
It's a sequel that many people wanted, and after a decade of waiting, it's finally arrived. Some people might argue that this game shouldn't really be on the list, but I put it here because, hey, it's Luigi! And the fact that it's the year of Luigi shows that every man counts. And this game, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, was the game to pretty much launch the year of Luigi. Besides, who knew a game like this would have such a fun multiplayer? Kinda interesting how a lot of the games in this top 20 are modern games, huh? Well, let's shake that up with the next one.
Number 17.
The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Okay, it's still somewhat of a modern game, but I'm referring to the GameCube one. That's like 2 console generations ago. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker showed us that even a hardcore serious franchise like The Legend of Zelda could have a fun, cartoony style and still be fun. Yes, it was different. Yes, people were expecting something else. But does that mean that this is a bad game? No. Okay, you're on a boat for a while. So, if you don't like that, then get the HD Wii U version and play that one. It's a good game and one that certainly surprised many people. I know that some people will be really happy that this game is on the list, and others will be like, Yoshiller, what are you doing? Welp, I'm still prepared for you, Flamers!
Number 16.
Super Metroid. Well, I certainly never beat this game. I hardly played it, and when I did, I got lost. But I guess that's the point of the game. You're supposed to get lost, and you're supposed to explore the world around you. And let me tell you, it's dark and scary. I think that I was just too young to understand this game, but I know that there's a lot of people that love it. And to be honest with you guys, although I'm not a huge Metroid fan, I can appreciate a game that challenges the player. In a fair way, anyway. And this is fair. I mean, I guess it's your fault if you get lost. I think it's safe to say that this is the game that really gathered Metroid fans. And who doesn't love that Super Nintendo mysteriousness that has a bright and colorful set of games, and then dark and challenging games, and that they both end up being successful? I think that's pretty cool.
Number 15.
I've seen YouTube videos, and when this game was first announced, people went nuts over this game. Super Smash Bros. Melee. If you haven't seen the E3 announcement for this game, go watch it. The second the trailer flashed the game's title, everyone screamed. And rightfully so. Super Smash Bros. Melee accomplished so many different things. It's a common tournament game, it has a large variety of characters, and it's thanks to this game that the Fire Emblem franchise even came to North America. There's a lot of little Easter eggs in this game, and there's a lot of fun challenges for players. The creator of this game almost killed himself in trying to produce a great game, and oh man, he produced a great game.
Number 14.
Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Oh, I can hear the flamers now. Super Smash Bros. Brawl is better than Super Smash Bros. Melee? Super Smash Bros. Brawl is one of the greatest Nintendo games of all time? You suck, Yoshiller. Well, look, the debate between whether or not Melee or Brawl is the better Smash Bros. Game has been a debate that's been going on ever since Brawl was released. I personally prefer Brawl, and I have my reasons, but there's a reason that I placed these two games back to back on this list. They both accomplish pretty much the same things. Both games have a large variety of characters, they both provide fun challenges for players, and they both push their respective game systems to their limits. This game has just so many more game modes that people often forget about, and it's evident that this game just packs a lot more. I get it, a lot of people don't like the subspace emissary, but wasn't it cool seeing your favorite video game characters interact with one another? Wasn't it cool seeing Sonic the Hedgehog and Solid Snake fight against characters like the Super Mario Brothers and Pokemon? Both Melee and Brawl had their pros and cons, but I feel like Brawl was just more pleasing in the long run. I could always make a separate video about this, but ultimately Brawl was just more centered at a lot of video game requests, and it's cool to see that game developers understand what the fans want, and I mean what they really understand what they want, and not just say, oh, well, this is what people want, so we think, and we're gonna put it in this game whether they actually want it or not. So if it really bugs you, just pretend that Melee is at the spot and Brawl is one spot before, though Brawl is higher on this list in my opinion, and I just spent all this time talking about why Brawl is better, but
Number 13.
Fans want many things. They always beg and beg for things to appear in a video game, and then they complain when something isn't in a video game, but they never take the time to learn how hard it is to make a video game. Fans always say that they want something, but they never really do anything, and if they do something, it's nothing too special. But man, this time fans did something and it worked. Xenoblade Chronicles, for those that don't know, was a game developed by Monolith Soft, and it was decided that the game would not be released in North America. After the fans started a petition named Project Rainfall, Nintendo actually listened to the fans and announced that the game would indeed come to the States. And I'm not even kidding. Back when YouTube had tags on videos, well, tags that you could actually see, one of the tags on the international release trailer by Nintendo was Project Rainfall. Then, after the announcement was made, a lot of people were concerned, thinking that the game wouldn't sell too well. People wanted the game, but people feared that nobody would buy it. But it sold very well, ranking as a successful Wii game. On top of that, it got very favorable reviews, and some even consider it as one of the best Wii games of all time. And the fact that a game as impressive as this was made for the Wii shows that the Wii wasn't a generation behind, and that people could really push the system to its limits. Now, some of you might argue that this game was made by Monolith Soft, and not Nintendo, and that this game should not be counted on the list. Well, in 2007, Nintendo bought the rights to the company, and Xenoblade came out in 2010 at its earliest, so that makes this game a first-party developed Nintendo title. And besides, HAL Laboratory was counted for Kirby, and Game Freak was counted for Pokemon, so Xenoblade should be counted for Monolith Soft. So, Xenoblade is on the list.
Number 12.
So, even back in the glory days of the Super Nintendo, games were trying to become more and more realistic. I mean, yeah, that's always been the goal, but back then, game companies tried all sorts of different things. This is when companies experimented with 3D and tried new game concepts. Rare decided to make the graphics of a cartoony character look realistic, and Donkey Kong was the character used. Thus, Donkey Kong Country was created. But the game on this list is the game's sequel, Donkey Kong Country 2. The game sold millions of copies and is considered to be the best Donkey Kong game. Lots of people even consider it to be the best Super Nintendo game. It had creative levels, interesting concepts, cooperative gameplay, and a monkey named Diddy Kong. Getting a game like this was a rare gem. Okay, that's an old pun, but I had to make it.
Number 11.
Lots of people know Super Mario for its basic platforming aspect, but once Mario took a leap into 3D, the only 2D Mario games we got were remakes of older ones. Then Nintendo decided to head back to their roots and create new Super Mario Bros. Now, I know that many people think that this franchise is just a cash-in and that it's just a lame excuse for Nintendo to release a Mario game in a short time span, but I wouldn't say that's true. Well, maybe New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Nintendo 3DS fits that description, but the other games are fine. Oh, 3DS version, you're fun, but you're so obviously a cash-in. The original was quite interesting, honestly, and it's actually really fun. I mean, plenty of games go back to their roots. Zelda had both overhead and 3D games, Kirby technically never changed, and Pokemon continued to expand upon its basic elements, while the yada 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 yada. But New Super Mario Bros., it's like Mario had to start over and it worked, without completely starting over. There's collectibles on each level, unlockables, and mini-games that you can play with other people. Now, New Super Mario Bros. Wii and New Super Mario Bros. U are not on this list, I'll tell you that right now. I mean, I like both of those games, and I have more views on those videos on my channel than anything else, but the original New Super Mario Bros. Takes the spot because, well, it was made before people started complaining about a yearly Mario game that was a 2D platformer. At this time, it was very original, even if it was just another 2D platformer. I mean, there's a reason that this game sold over 30 million copies.
Number 10.
reaching the top 10 now. And you know what? This is a game that just came out recently, and it shows that Nintendo still has that creative spark. It's Super Mario 3D World, humans. Yeah, this game is awesome! I was legitimately amazed, surprised, and entertained throughout the entire game. I'm impressed that games today are still able to surprise me, and this game just does that so easily. With or without friends, this game is fun. And that's what gaming is all about. Having fun, not having friends. This is one of those games where it's fun, and you can tell that the designers just had fun making it too. I mean, yeah, there might have been some complications when they designed the game, but man, they knew what the fans would like, and they delivered. There's a lot of creativity and effort put into this game. If you haven't played it, I advise that you go play it. And if it means anything, I started making this list before the game even came out. The fact that I decided to put this game on the list in the top 10 should mean something. And for people saying that the Wii U has no games, I say that it has Super Mario 3D World.
Number 9.
Alright, admit it, you knew that this had to be on here somewhere. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past was a huge step up from the previous titles. I mean, yeah, a lot of the Super Nintendo games were huge improvements from the NES games, but still, this is crazy. And the fact that after 2 decades, the developers wanted to make a sequel to this game, out of all the Zelda games, is pretty nuts. It gives the Zelda franchise a more in-depth world, a more in-depth story, and a more in-depth personality. And when I say personality, I don't mean that it's a happy game or a mean game. I mean that it's a game that stands out from the others, and that it shows that even a simple idea can have a lot of depth. A lot of games have great leaps from console to console, but arguably, Zelda does it best.
Number 8.
Do you remember when I said that Nintendo is awesome at making RPGs? Well, they're still awesome at making RPGs, and this game pretty much takes the cake. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is phenomenal. In fact, after making a walkthrough of the game, I realized that the game is my favorite GameCube game. It's funny, it's touching, it's dark, it's active, it's creative, it's puzzling, it's pretty much everything! And the humor, I swear, is so amazing. After playing it again, I really got to understand a lot of the humor that the game had. The game allows for all sorts of strategy, and people have done interesting challenges with it. And there's easiness enough for people that are new to the game, and there's plenty of challenge for when you get further down the game. And there's only characters that appear for a couple seconds, but thousands of people remember them. This game even makes fun of its own plot, knowing that it's a generic plot. And even after all that, the game still throws twists and turns when you least expect it, so you're always entertained. And the best part is that the paper mechanic in this game is just beautiful. Everything as a 2D object in a 3D world looks amazing, and turning into paper objects is really, really fun. It's like a perfect sequel to an already amazing game. It's really that good.
Number 7.
Alright, so just a couple numbers ago, I talked about how obvious it was that Zelda: A Link to the Past was on this list, and how obvious it was that the great transition onto a next generation console was easy for Zelda. Well, how obvious was this one, guys? The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I mean, come on, many people consider this to be the best Zelda game, and it can be played on a Nintendo 64, a GameCube, the Wii's Virtual Console, and now on the Nintendo 3DS. This game just makes A Link to the Past look like Luigi standing next to Mario. It's just a bigger creation over the other. Ocarina of Time just defines so many elements of gaming nowadays, and it pretty much just sets the standard for Zelda games, both 2D and 3D. And I know that if I didn't include this game on the list, then I probably wouldn't be alive to make it all the way to number 1 on the list. Anyway, let's get over to number 1, humans, but first, number 6.
Number 6.
Space, the final frontier. And it was about time that Mario went into outer space. Super Mario Galaxy showed many phenomenal concepts and introduced various new ideas into the franchise. It made great use of the Wii motion controls without overdoing it, and it had very beautiful environments with very engaging moments. And the soundtrack for this game is just amazing. That orchestra rocks. The sequel further pushed these concepts. Even ideas that were underplayed were fully utilized in the sequel. It had even more creative levels and an even more phenomenal concept use. So, which game gets the spot on this list? I'm gonna be a cheater again and just say that both games get the spot. Super Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2 both excel in different aspects, but both games also achieve one major thing: an amazing style of gameplay. These games are a lot different than previous Mario games, and they really demonstrate how far the developers want to push the franchise. And even though they're a lot different, nobody had a problem with it. Alright, yeah, sure, they're both Mario games, they both involve getting from point A to point B, but technically speaking, that's what a Mario game should be. Simple. Both of these games are simple with very interesting concepts, and for being the Mario games on the Wii, they did a fantastic job.
Number 5.
Super Mario Bros. 3. Many people consider this to be the best NES game ever, and rightfully so. Everything that the original Super Mario Bros. Game did correctly, this game did even more correctly. It was like going from 100% to 101%. I'm sure that many people know the story of how this game was revealed in a movie, and how the game was as fun as people thought it would be, and yada yada yada. I shouldn't have to explain too much, but for those that are clueless about this game, let's just say that this is a Mario game that set the standards for the franchise. A map consisting of different worlds, different themes for each world, a vast amount of power-ups, fun and inventive level designs, having two people be able to play on the world map and switch between the levels, all that good stuff. And the fact that the Raccoon Tanuki power-ups are back in the recent Mario games shows the brilliance of this game. It's truly a Mario game. And when I say a Mario game, I mean a game that you would think of when you think of Super Mario. It's that good.
Number 4.
For those that don't know, Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver were intended to be the last Pokemon games. Back when Red and Blue were in development, the developers had wanted to include as many things in the original Pokemon games as possible, but they couldn't due to various things like time constraints, memory sizes, and a lack of knowledge on how to program such concepts. When the development for the sequel began, the developers just went all out. Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver are amazing, and they set some of the most important key aspects of the Pokemon game. Their remakes, Pokemon Heart Gold and Pokemon Soul Silver, managed to recapture brilliance of the original games. Gold and Silver had lots to explore and lots of features, but Heart Gold and Soul Silver have even more to explore and even more features. These remakes not only look amazing and play amazingly, but they also fix the very minor problems that the original games had. It's as if you took a perfect game and redefined the word perfect. If there's any Pokemon games to play, it's these ones. They're just that amazing. I don't know how they did it, but they outdid my favorite Pokemon games, and Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver are now my favorite Pokemon games.
Number 3.
If there was any game that could greatly advertise and define a game system, it was Super Mario World. It had a bit more everything. And the fact that this game was a launch title, dang! This game really captures what the Super Nintendo can do. This game made the fastest thing alive get a run for his money. And it also introduced one of the most memorable video game characters in video game history, Yoshi. And I'm not just saying that because he's my favorite video game character. Nuh-uh. While Super Mario Bros. 3 may have set the standards for a Mario game, Super Mario World set the standards for video games, period. Period.
Number 2.
Okay, hang on there a sec. Before you go and click that dislike button on this video, there's a very good reason that this game is number 2. You see, this game was made around the time that Donkey Kong Country was in development, and it was also made in a time where games were trying to become more and more realistic. Then, the creator of Mario, Shigeru Miyamoto, had an idea. He thought that he should go the opposite direction and make everything look like a cartoon. And wow, it looks beautiful! Everything looks like fun! And as if things are supposed to be fun. And isn't that what a game is all about? Having fun? If a game looks fun, and if a game looks like the developers had fun making it, then the game should definitely be fun. Or at least satisfactory. But unfortunately, that's not always the case, so I shall explain more. This game is very different than other platformer games at the time. Rather than just running and jumping, you had other abilities like eating enemies, turning them into eggs, and throwing them. Then you could flutter jump and ground pound to get to all sorts of new secret areas. Then you could also transform into different vehicles and use these vehicles to get through various obstacles. These new ideas allowed for many possibilities, and the developers behind this game are truly smart and utilized all these concepts in great ways. And the game provides a fair challenge for casual gamers and a difficult challenge for hardcore ones. I've never even gotten 100% in this game, and I've played it many times. And this game pretty much sealed Yoshi as an acceptable and recognizable video game character in the video game industry. And this game is the reason that Yoshi's my favorite video game character. But, although Yoshi's my favorite video game character, and although I do love this game, there is one game I think deserves number 1 on this spot.
Number 1.
Super Mario 64. Wow, this game changed the gaming industry into what we know today. To think that Nintendo made a game in 3D and succeeded in the most significant aspects of such a game on their first try for a launch of a video game system is pretty darn impressive. For making such a huge leap, they sure knew what to do when this game was developed. To this day, people still play and speedrun this game. Yeah, the game has its glitches, but nobody cares because the game is that amazing. In fact, people use these glitches to make the game more fun. Now, what makes this game so amazing? Well, besides being in 3D and being able to see an environment all around you rather than just behind you, the game gives the player full control of the character. What do I mean by that? Well, rather than just going left, right, up, and down, you can now go 360 degrees in every direction. And the controls are fluent enough to where everything just flows nicely. If you died, it was your fault. And there are different mechanics like triple jumping, long jumping, and wall kicking that allow the player to explore new areas and achieve new goals. Now, I should explain the remake of this game. The remake of this game is Super Mario 64 DS for the Nintendo DS. And while that game was an amazing launch title for the system and introduces various new concepts to an already awesome game, the sad fact is, it is just a remake. While the game is fantastic and shows off new ideas to an older game, the thing that makes the game successful is that it's using already successful ideas from Super Mario 64. Now, that isn't to say that the remake is horrible. Actually, it's by no means horrible. It's amazing. But Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver are on this list because they brought new surprises to an already surprising game. Super Mario 64 DS kind of babies your way through the game and tells you where all the surprises are. And it's an awesome game, but it's just not the same experience. So, as such, the remake isn't on this list like the remakes of Pokemon were. Super Mario 64 just blew people away, and it's thanks to this game that games are as amazing as they are today. Various Mario games have set standards for both Mario games and the entire video game industry, but none have done as much as Super Mario 64. With all the fun and enjoyment that players have received out of this game, and how far it has pushed the gaming industry, this, my fellow humans, is why Super Mario 64 is the #1 Nintendo game of all time. That about wraps up this video, humans. I'd like to thank you all for watching. See you all in future videos. Bye-bye, humans.